Lee Taman stared at the acceptance letter on his laptop screen for the 10th time that morning. The words still looked impossible. Galactic Academic Exchange Program. First human participant. Full scholarship to study at Velthara Prime Station. His. Roommate Jinho walked into their small Seoul apartment carrying coffee and breakfast. "Still can't believe it?" he asked, setting down the food. "6 months ago, nobody even knew aliens existed," Taman said, closing the laptop. "Now I'm supposed to go live with them and study their technology." The first contact had happened during Taman's final semester of mechanical engineering. Giant ships appeared over major cities worldwide. The aliens called themselves the Keltharian Empire. They were peaceful, they said through their translators. They wanted to learn about humans and share knowledge. After months of careful negotiations, they offered one exchange student position. Thousands applied. Somehow, Taman's application about wanting to understand alien engineering caught their attention. "You sure about this?" Jinho asked, sitting down. "These aliens are pretty weird looking in the videos." Taman had seen the footage. The Keltharians were tall, maybe 8 feet, with hard shell-like skin and 4 arms. Their faces looked like a mix between a mantis and a beetle. They spoke in clicking sounds alongside their translated words. "It's the chance of a lifetime," Taman said. "Besides, how dangerous can it be?" They specifically asked for an exchange student. 2 weeks later, Taman stood in the docking bay of Velthara Prime Station, holding his single suitcase and trying not to stare at everything around him. The station was massive, easily the size of a small city. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that glowed softly. Strange symbols covered every surface. "Human Taman Lee," a voice said behind him. He turned to see his first real alien. Ambassador Velnara was even taller than he expected, her 4 arms moving in precise, formal gestures. Her shell was deep purple with gold markings. When she clicked, a small device on her chest translated her words into Korean. "I am Ambassador Velnara. I will be your cultural liaison during your stay." Taman bowed, remembering the orientation. Materials. "Thank you for having me, Ambassador. I'm honored to be here." Her large compound eyes studied him. "You will follow all protocols during your stay. This is essential for diplomatic relations between our species." She handed him a thick manual. "Study this carefully. Our society has rules that must not be broken. Speak quietly always. Move slowly. Bow before speaking to any Keltharian. Never touch anyone without permission. Keep your body covered at all times as our customs require." Taman nodded, flipping through the manual. Pages and pages of rules about proper behavior, formal speech patterns, and cultural do's and don'ts. "Your dormitory assignment is in Section 7, Velnara continued. "You will share the area with one other human who arrived last week for linguistic study." She led him through corridors filled with Keltharians going about their daily business. Everyone moved with the same formal, measured pace. They spoke in whispers, their clicking barely audible. When they passed each other, they performed elaborate, bowing rituals. "Your species is very different from ours," Velnara explained as they walked. "Humans appear more energetic in your communications. This concerns some of our people. You must demonstrate that humans can follow proper civilized behavior." They reached the dormitory section. The rooms were simple but comfortable, with beds, desks, and basic furniture scaled for human size. The walls still had that soft crystal glow. "This is your room," Velnara said, opening the door. "Next door is human Hyun Park, your fellow student. He has been following protocols excellently." As if summoned, the neighboring door opened. A young man about Taman's age stepped out, bowing immediately when he saw Velnara. "Ambassador," Hyun said quietly. "Is this the new human student?" "Yes. Human Taman Lee. Meet human Hyun Park." Hyun bowed to Taman, who bowed back. Everything felt formal and strange, but Taman was determined to make a good impression. "I'll leave you to settle in," Velnara said. "Remember, human Taman, you represent all of humanity here. The success of future human-Keltharian relations may depend on how well you follow our ways." After she left, Hyun relaxed slightly. "Don't worry too much," he whispered. "They're actually pretty nice once you get used to all the rules. Just remember to always bow first and keep your voice down." "How long have you been here?" Taman asked, unpacking his clothes. 2 weeks. I'm studying their language systems. It's fascinating how they combine clicks with words, but you have to be really careful about volume and timing. I accidentally spoke too loudly on my 3rd day and 3 Keltharians fell over." "Fell over?" "Yeah, loud sounds seem to startle them. Badly. They're used to everything being quiet and controlled. Oh, and never gesture too quickly with your hands. They interpret sudden movements as aggressive." Taman looked at the thick manual of rules. "This is going to be harder than I thought." "You'll get it," Hyun said. "Just watch how they do everything. Slow, quiet, formal. Think of it like extreme politeness all the time." The next few days passed smoothly. Taman attended orientation sessions about Keltharian history and culture. He learned that their society had avoided wars for over 1,000 years through strict social protocols. Everyone knew their place, followed the rules, and maintained harmony through formal behavior. He began attending engineering lectures in massive crystal amphitheaters. The Keltharian professors spoke in careful, measured tones about stellar mechanics and quantum technologies that seemed centuries ahead of human science. Taman kept his voice to a whisper, bowed to everyone, and moved slowly through the corridors. The other Keltharians seemed pleased with his behavior. Some even gave him what he thought might be approving clicks. "You're doing great," Hyun told him after his first week. "Ambassador Velnara told me the High Council received positive reports about human diplomatic potential." Taman felt proud. He was representing all of humanity, and apparently doing a good job. The aliens seemed to respect humans who could follow their civilized ways. He had no idea that everything was about to change. With a single, unavoidable sneeze, Taman walked quietly through the crystal corridors toward his 2nd week of classes. He felt proud of how well things were going. Every Keltharian he passed gave him respectful clicking sounds. Ambassador Velnara had even complimented his progress yesterday. "You are learning our ways quickly, human Taman," she had said. "The High Council is pleased with your respectful behavior." Today's lecture was about stellar engineering, something Taman had been looking forward to since arriving. The Keltharians could build structures in space that humans could barely imagine. Their technology was thousands of years ahead of Earth's best efforts. He entered the massive amphitheater and bowed to the other students already seated. The room was beautiful, made entirely of glowing crystal that changed colors slowly. 200 Keltharian students sat in perfect rows, all wearing their formal robes. Taman took his assigned seat in the front section. As the only human in most classes, he always sat where the professors could see him clearly. This was part of the exchange protocol. Professor Kelthanus entered through the main door. He was older than most Keltharians, with darker shell markings and more elaborate robes. His forearms moved in the traditional greeting pattern as he approached the speaking platform. "Students," the professor began in his whisper-quiet voice, "today we will study the construction methods for orbital ring systems around gas giant planets." The lecture began with detailed diagrams appearing in the crystal walls around them. Taman watched, fascinated, as the professor explained how they built massive rings that could harvest energy from planetary atmospheres. 20 minutes into the lecture, Taman felt a small tickle in his nose. He tried to ignore it, focusing on the professor's explanation of magnetic field manipulation, but the tickle grew stronger. He rubbed his nose quietly, hoping the feeling would go away. The professor was showing how they anchored the rings to the planet's gravity wells. This was exactly the kind of information that could revolutionize human space construction. The tickle became impossible to ignore. Taman felt the familiar buildup that every human knew meant a sneeze was coming. He tried holding his breath. He tried pressing his tongue to the roof of his mouth. Nothing worked. He looked around the quiet amphitheater. Every Keltharian sat perfectly still, listening to the professor's whispered words. The only sounds were soft clicking and the gentle hum of the crystal walls. Taman felt the sneeze building pressure in his head. He had maybe 5 seconds before. It happened. He quickly covered his nose and mouth with both hands, hoping to muffle the sound. Achoo! The sneeze exploded from him like a thunderclap. In the perfectly quiet amphitheater, it sounded like a cannon firing. The crystal walls actually vibrated, making the light flicker. The reaction was immediate and terrifying. Every single Keltharian in the room dropped to the floor, not just ducking or startled jumping, but dropping flat on their bellies with all. 4 arms spread wide. The professor fell behind his platform. Students toppled from their seats. For 3 full seconds, the only sound was the echo of Taman's sneeze bouncing off the crystal walls. Then, the clicking started. Rapid, panicked clicking from 200 Keltharian voices all at once. It sounded like a machine gun made of insects. Bright red lights began flashing throughout the amphitheater. An alarm system Taman had never heard before started wailing. The crystal walls turned deep red, pulsing in time with the alarms. Within seconds, security drones poured into the room through every entrance. Small flying machines with scanning beams swept over the crowd of prostrate aliens, then focused on Taman. He sat frozen in his seat, hands still covering his face, not understanding what was happening. Professor Kelthanus slowly raised his head from behind the platform. His compound eyes were wide with what looked like terror and awe. He began clicking rapidly in the Keltharian language. Ambassador Velnara burst through the main entrance, flanked by 6 security guards. She moved faster than Taman had ever seen a Keltharian move, but stopped abruptly when she saw him still sitting in his seat. She approached slowly, as if he might explode again at any moment. "Human Taman," she said, her translator device crackling with interference from the alarms. "Was that a threat display?" "What?" Taman lowered his hands, completely confused. "I'm sorry, I sneezed. I tried to keep it quiet, but..." Sneezed? "Ambassador?" Velnara's 4 arms moved in patterns Taman had never seen before. "You created that sonic war cry involuntarily?" "It wasn't a war cry," Taman said, standing up slowly. "It's just something humans do when our noses are irritated. I'm really sorry if I disturbed the class." The ambassador turned to the security guards and clicked rapidly. They clicked back, their voices urgent and frightened. Around the amphitheater, other Keltharians were slowly getting back to their feet, but they kept their distance from Taman. "You mean," Ambassador Velnara said carefully, "that humans can produce sonic disruptions of that magnitude as a biological function?" "Well, yes, but it's not disruption. It's just without any technological enhancement. No breathing apparatus. Or sound amplifiers?" Taman nodded, still not understanding why everyone looked so scared. "All humans sneeze. It's normal for us." The clicking around the room grew louder and more excited. Professor Kelthanus approached cautiously, staying well out of arm's reach. "Human Taman," he said, "in our observations of your species, we never witnessed this capability. Are there other atmospheric manipulation abilities that humans possess?" "It's not manipulation," Taman tried to explain. "It's just air coming out of our nose and mouth quickly. Everyone does it." Ambassador Velnara touched a device on her chest. She began speaking rapidly in Keltharian, while the device transmitted her words somewhere else. Taman caught a few translated phrases: sonic capabilities, biological weapon systems, and reassess threat levels. "I'm not a threat," Taman said, raising his hands peacefully. I was just listening to the lecture. The sneeze was an accident. Accident? The professor's translator made clicking sounds of confusion. You produced a sound capable of causing structural resonance in our crystals by accident? Taman looked around at the crystal walls, which were still flickering slightly. He had no idea his sneeze could affect their technology. I think there's been a misunderstanding, he said. Ambassador Velnara finished her transmission and looked at him with what he was beginning to recognize as fear, mixed with respect. Human Taman, I must escort you back to your quarters immediately. The High Council has called an emergency session to discuss this development. As they left the amphitheater, Taman could hear the Keltharian students clicking rapidly among themselves. The professor was examining his crystal displays, which were still showing interference patterns. Walking through the corridors, Taman noticed that every Keltharian they passed stopped and dropped into that same prostrate position. Word was spreading fast. Ambassador, he said as they walked, I really think this is all a big misunderstanding. Perhaps, she replied, but her tone suggested she didn't believe him. Tell me, Human Taman, how loud can these sneezes become? Well, it depends. Some people sneeze louder than others. And all humans can do this? Yes, everyone sneezes. Ambassador Velnara stopped walking for a moment, her compound eyes staring at him. 7 billion humans, she said quietly, and they all possess this capability. When they reached his quarters, Jan was waiting outside his door, looking worried. What happened? He asked. The whole station is talking about some kind of human demonstration in the engineering amphitheater. I sneezed, Taman said. Hyan stared at him. You sneezed? Apparently that's a very big deal here. Ambassador Velnara left them with instructions to remain in their quarters until further notice. As soon as she was gone, Hyan grabbed Taman's arm. Do you have any idea what you've done? He whispered. I just heard 3 different Keltharians talking about upgrading their defensive systems because of human atmospheric warfare capabilities. Taman sat heavily on his bed. It was just a sneeze, Hyan. How was I supposed to know they'd never heard one before? Because they don't sneeze, Hyan said. Their respiratory systems don't work that way. To them, you just demonstrated that humans can create sonic weapons with their bare faces. Through their small window, they could see Keltharian military vessels taking positions around the station. Ships that had been docked were powering up their engines. I think, Taman said, watching the military response to his sneeze. I might have accidentally started something very bad. 3 days had passed since the sneeze incident, and Taman was starting to feel like a prisoner in his own dormitory. Ambassador Velnara visited twice daily to check on him, always asking careful questions about human respiratory functions, and whether he planned any more demonstrations. I keep telling her it was just a sneeze, Taman said to Hyan, as they sat in the shared common area between their rooms. But she keeps taking notes like I'm describing some kind of weapon system. Hyan looked up from his language studies. The whole station is different now. Have you noticed how they look at us when we walk to the food court? Taman had noticed. Every Keltharian they passed would stop, stare, and then bow much deeper than before. Some even backed against the walls to give them extra space. The clicking. Conversations would stop completely until they were out of hearing range. I heard 2 guards talking yesterday, Hyan continued. They called you the one who commands the air. They think you can control atmospheric pressure or something. That's ridiculous, Taman said, but he felt worried. Through their small window, he could still see military ships positioned around the station. More arrived every day. Come on, Hyan said, closing his study materials. Let's go get lunch. Maybe if they see us acting normal, they'll realize we're not dangerous. They made their way through the crystal corridors to the main food court. This was one of the few places where humans and Keltharians ate together, though at separate sections. The human area had Earth-style tables and chairs, while the Keltharian section had elaborate standing platforms designed for their different body structure. The food court was busy during midday, filled with students and station workers. As always, conversations stopped when Taemin and Hyun entered, but they tried to ignore the stares. They got their meals from the human food dispensers. Earth had sent supplies for the exchange students, including some familiar Korean foods that reminded Taemin of home. Today he was especially happy to see a container of kimchi jjigae that his mother had sent in his care package. They sat at their usual table near the window, trying to act normal while dozens of compound eyes watched their every move. "This is good," Hyun said, opening his own container of food. "My mom sent these dried squid snacks, but I can't get the container open. The lid is stuck really tight." He struggled with the plastic container, his hands slipping on the smooth lid. Taemin could see his friend getting frustrated, twisting, and pulling without success. Without thinking about it, Taemin reached across the table. "Yo, bro, need help with that?" The words came out in his normal speaking voice, casual and friendly. He took the container from Hyun's hands and twisted the lid with a quick, firm motion. It opened with a satisfying pop. "Thanks," Hyun said, taking back his snacks. Taemin was already reaching for his own food when he noticed the silence. Complete, total silence. He looked up to see every Keltharian in the food court frozen in place. Some had been walking and stopped mid-step. Others had been eating and held their food halfway to their mouths. All of them were staring directly at him. Taemin," Hyun whispered. "What just happened?" Before Taemin could answer, the familiar sound of rapid clicking filled the air. But this wasn't panicked clicking like during the sneeze incident. This sounded different, awed, respectful. One by one, every Keltharian in the food court began the same deep bow they had performed after his sneeze. But this time, they stayed down longer, their forearms spread wide in what Taemin was starting to recognize as a gesture of submission. "What did I do wrong now?" Taemin asked quietly. Ambassador Velnara appeared as if from nowhere, moving faster than her usual formal pace. She approached their table but stopped several feet away, performing her own deep bow before speaking. "Human, Taemin," her translator device crackled, with what sounded like excitement mixed with fear. "Was that a command demonstration?" "A what?" Taemin looked at the container in his hands. "I just opened a lid for my friend. You issued a verbal command and then demonstrated superior physical manipulation capabilities," Ambassador Velnara said, her compound eyes fixed on the container. "And your subordinate immediately complied with your authority." "Subordinate?" Hyun squeaked. "I'm not his subordinate. We're friends." "Friends?" the ambassador repeated slowly, as if the word didn't translate properly. "You mean you are not in a hierarchical military structure?" "No," Taemin said, setting down the container carefully. "We're just classmates. I helped him open his food because that's what friends do." Ambassador Velnara's forearms moved in rapid patterns. She touched her communication device and began speaking quickly in Keltharian. Around the food court, other aliens had started recording everything, with small devices. "Ambassador," Taemin said, trying to keep his voice quiet and respectful, "I think there's been another misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" She clicked in what might have been confusion. "You gave a casual order in your native language, then demonstrated physical superiority by accomplishing what your companion could not. This suggests humans are so confident in their abilities that they do not even need formal preparation for dominance displays." "It wasn't a dominance display," Taemin protested. "I just said, 'Yo, bro,' because that's how humans talk to friends. And I opened the container because I have bigger hands." "Bigger hands," Ambassador Velnara repeated, staring at Taemin's hands, like they were weapons. "Superior grip strength is a standard human trait?" "Well, I guess compared to your hands, maybe," Taemin said, looking at her four delicate claw-like appendages. The ambassador made rapid clicking sounds and spoke into her device again. Taman caught some of the translation. Casual superiority, effortless command structure, and no preparation required. "This is getting worse," Hyun whispered. Around them, Keltharian students were still bowing, but now they were also backing away slowly, giving the humans even more space. Security drones had appeared at the edges of the food court, hovering and observing. "Ambassador," Taman said, "in human culture, helping friends is normal behavior. We don't have formal hierarchy among equals. When I said bro, I was being friendly, not commanding anyone." "Friendly?" She said the word like it was foreign. "Without ceremony? Without acknowledgement of social position?" "That's right. Humans are casual with people we like." Ambassador Velnara's translator made confused clicking sounds. In Keltharian society, every interaction required formal recognition of who was superior and who was inferior. The idea of casual equality seemed to break her understanding. "So when you performed this effortless physical demonstration," she said slowly, "you were not establishing dominance over human Hyun?" "No, I was helping him eat his snacks." "And the verbal command, 'Yo, bro'? That's just friendly slang. It means 'hey, friend' in casual English." The ambassador stared at them both for a long moment. Then she spoke rapidly into her communication device. The conversation lasted several minutes, with lots of excited clicking from the other end. "Human Taman," she said finally. "The High Council requires immediate clarification. If humans can demonstrate physical and social superiority as casual friendship behaviors, what do your actual displays of power look like?" Taman felt a sinking sensation in his stomach. "We don't have displays of power. We're just people." "Just people," she repeated, "who can create sonic disruptions with biological functions and casually demonstrate superior capabilities without preparation or ceremony." More security drones were arriving. Through the windows, Taman could see additional military ships moving into position around the station. "The situation is escalating beyond our control," Ambassador Velnara said. "The High Council has requested emergency diplomatic contact with your Earth government. They need to understand human military capabilities before more of your species arrive." "Military capabilities," Hyun said. "We're exchange students." "Exchange students who demonstrate advanced abilities as casual social interactions," the ambassador replied. "If this is your normal behavior, the High Council must prepare for what your trained soldiers might be capable of." As they were escorted back to their quarters by 6 security guards, Taman could hear excited clicking conversations throughout the corridors. The translation devices caught fragments: casual dominance, effortless superiority, human friendship. "Protocols. I can't believe this," Taman said once they were back in their rooms. "I called you bro and opened a jar. How is that threatening?" "Because they've never seen anything like human informality," Hyun said, pacing around the small room. "Their whole society is based on formal hierarchy and ceremony. To them, the fact that you can casually ignore all social protocols suggests humans are so powerful they don't need to follow rules." Through their window, they watched more ships arriving. The station's communication arrays were working overtime, sending messages across the Keltharian Empire. "What have I done?" Taman asked, sitting on his bed with his head in his hands. "You acted like a human," Hyun said. "Unfortunately, that seems to be the most terrifying thing these aliens have ever witnessed." On his desk, Taman's communication device blinked with an incoming message from Earth Command. The message was marked urgent and classified. The galaxy was starting to take notice of humanity, and it was all because Taman had called his friend bro and opened a container of snacks. The 3rd week of Taman's stay began with even tighter security around their dormitory section. 2 guards now stood outside their doors at all times. Ambassador Velnara visited every morning with a list of questions about human social behaviors and physical capabilities. Today, she asked me how much weight the average human can lift. Hyan told Taemin as they ate breakfast in their quarters. They were no longer allowed in the public food court after what the Keltharians called the casual dominance incident. What did you tell her? Taemin asked, picking at his rice. The truth, that humans can lift maybe 50 to 100 kilograms depending on training. She wrote it down like I was describing a siege weapon. Taemin sighed. Everything he did was being analyzed and reported to the High Council. Yesterday, he had yawned during a video conference, and 3 military analysts spent an hour discussing whether it was a threat display or a demonstration of breathing capacity. The communication device on his desk chimed with another message from Earth Command. Captain Kwon Jiho had been sending daily updates about the diplomatic situation. The messages were getting more urgent each day. Human exchange student Taemin, the latest message read, "Be advised that Keltharian Empire has requested immediate military conference regarding human demonstration protocols. 3 neighboring alien species have requested protection agreements. Please maintain low profile until diplomatic team arrives." Low profile, Taemin muttered. I sneezed and helped you open a snack container. How much lower can my profile get? The temperature in their dormitory section had been rising all morning. The Keltharians kept their station very cold, comfortable for their shell-like bodies, but chilly for humans. Usually, the environmental controls adjusted automatically, but something seemed wrong with the system today. Is it just me? Or is it getting really warm in here? Hyan asked, pulling at his shirt collar. The air circulation sounds different too, Taemin said, listening to the mechanical hums in the walls. Maybe the environmental system is having problems. By midday, their quarters felt like a sauna. Both humans were sweating despite wearing light clothing. Hyan went to find a maintenance worker while Taemin tried to cool down in his room. He opened the small window, but it didn't help much. The station's exterior was in space, so there was no actual air circulation. The heat seemed to be coming from the internal systems themselves. Taemin sat at his desk, trying to read his study materials, but sweat kept dripping onto the pages. His shirt was soaked through, sticking uncomfortably to his skin. The temperature had to be over 30 degrees Celsius now, maybe 35. For the Keltharians, this was probably just warm. But for a human, it was becoming unbearable. He looked around his small room. The guards were outside in the corridor, where the temperature was normal. They couldn't see through his door unless they used their monitoring equipment, which they only did during scheduled check-ins. Taemin made a decision. He was alone in his room, dying of heat, and needed to cool down. He pulled off his soaked shirt and set it aside to dry. The relief was immediate. The cooler air against his skin felt wonderful after hours of overheating. He sat back down at his desk in just his pants, finally comfortable enough to focus on reading. What Taemin didn't know was that the environmental malfunction was actually a test ordered by the High Council. They wanted to see how humans reacted to stress conditions. Every moment was being recorded by hidden cameras installed after the sneeze incident. In the station's security center, a dozen Keltharian analysts watched their monitors with growing alarm. "He's removing his protective coverings," Security Chief Nalvera whispered, her forearms trembling. "Is this a preparation ritual?" asked Dr. Welthanos, the station's xenobiologist. "Are humans shedding outer layers before combat?" On the screen, Taemin sat calmly reading his datapad, completely unaware of the panic he was causing. To him, he was just a college student trying to stay cool. To the Keltharians, he was revealing something they had never seen before. "Look at the muscular definition," Dr. Welthanos said, pointing at the screen. "Those are clearly warrior-class physical adaptations." Taemin was in decent shape from playing soccer in college, but he was hardly a bodybuilder. However, the Keltharians had only seen humans in loose clothing before. Their own bodies were hidden under shells and robes, so the sight of human musculature was completely foreign. "And these marking patterns, the doctor continued, zooming in on a small scar on Taman's shoulder from a childhood bike accident. Battle wounds from previous conflicts. Note how casually he displays his combat readiness, Security Chief Nalvera said, recording everything. No ceremony, no warning. He simply reveals his warrior status as if it requires no preparation. Thanos was documenting every detail, the way human skin changed color with heat, the visible muscle groups that seemed designed for combat, the scars that suggested previous battles. Most terrifying of all, how relaxed Taman appeared while in this battle-ready state. If this is his casual appearance, the security chief said, what must their actual warriors look like? The footage was transmitted directly to the High Council chambers on the Keltharian homeworld. Within minutes, emergency sessions were called. Military advisors were consulted. Threat assessments were updated. Admiral Zelnathi studied the images with growing concern. Our intelligence clearly underestimated human physical capabilities. This individual appears to be in peak combat condition, yet our reports indicate he's merely a student. The casual nature of the revelation is most disturbing, agreed Counselor Vexillara. He transitioned to combat readiness without any apparent trigger or preparation. This suggests humans maintain warrior status as a default state. Back in his room, Taman had no idea he was being watched. He finished reading about Keltharian crystal technology and started working on his engineering assignments. The cooler temperature made it much easier to concentrate. Hyun returned from his search for maintenance workers, looking frustrated and overheated. I couldn't find anyone to fix the environmental system, he said, knocking on Taman's door. They all just bowed and backed away when I tried to explain the problem. Come in, Taman called. It's much cooler if you take off your shirt. Hyun opened the door and immediately froze. Taman, you're not wearing a shirt. It's too hot. The temperature must be over 35 degrees in here. But the aliens have never seen humans without shirts before, Hyun said, looking worried. Remember all those rules about keeping our bodies covered? Taman looked down at himself, then at his sweat-soaked shirt hanging on the chair. It's just too hot to wear it. I'm not doing anything wrong, just trying not to overheat. Maybe you should put it back on, Hyun suggested. What if someone sees you? Before Taman could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. They could hear rapid clicking and the sound of many feet running past their door. What now? Taman sighed, reaching for his shirt. Ambassador Velnara's voice came over the intercom system, translated into Korean. All students return to quarters immediately. Station security alert level raised to maximum. Human exchange student Taman. Report to conference room 7 for immediate consultation. They want to see me right now? Taman asked, pulling his damp shirt back on. Heavy footsteps approached their door. Not the usual 2 guards, but many more. The door chimed with an urgent visitor request. Human Taman, came Ambassador Velnara's voice through the door. Please prepare for escort to emergency council session. Emergency council session? Hyun whispered. What did you do? I took off my shirt because it was hot, Taman said, feeling confused and worried. When the door opened, Taman saw not just Ambassador Velnara, but 12 security guards, 3 military officers he didn't recognize, and Dr. Thanos with a portable scanner array. Human Taman, Ambassador Velnara said, her translator crackling with what sounded like nervous energy. The High Council requires immediate explanation of your combat preparation display. My what? The removal of protective coverings and revelation of warrior-class physical adaptations, Dr. Thanos said, consulting his scanner readings. Our analysis indicates you transitioned to combat readiness with no external threat stimulus. Taman looked at Hyun, who was staring in disbelief. I was hot, Taman said slowly, so I took off my shirt to cool down, that's all. Hot, Ambassador, Velnara repeated. You removed clothing due to temperature discomfort? Yes. Humans do that when we're too warm. It's normal. The military officers began clicking rapidly among themselves. One of them, who wore more elaborate armor than the others, stepped forward. Human Taman, the officer said, if removing protective gear is a comfort behavior, why do you maintain such obvious combat conditioning? Combat conditioning? Taman looked down at his shirt, still damp with sweat. I just play soccer sometimes. Soccer. Dr. Welthanos said, making notes. A human military training exercise. No, it's a game, a sport. A competitive combat sport that produces this level of physical development. The doctor continued writing. Through the window, Taman could see more ships arriving at the station. Bigger ships, military vessels with weapons arrays that hadn't been there yesterday. I think, he said quietly, I've made another mistake. Indeed, Ambassador Velnara replied. The High Council has declared a formal diplomatic crisis. The Emperor himself is coming to assess the human threat level personally. As they escorted him through corridors filled with nervous Keltharians, Taman wondered how taking off his shirt in his own room had somehow escalated into a galactic incident. The emergency council chamber was the largest room Taman had seen on the station. Massive crystal walls rose 30 meters high, glowing with soft blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Dozens of Keltharian officials sat in circular rows, all wearing their most formal robes. At the center of the chamber stood a raised platform where Taman now found himself, feeling very small and very confused. Ambassador Velnara stood beside him, translating the rapid clicking conversations happening around them. The High Council is reviewing your case, she explained quietly. They are trying to understand what kind of threat humanity represents. Admiral Zelnathi approached the platform, his dark shell marked with military honors that Taman didn't recognize. 4 guards flanked him, carrying devices that looked like weapons, but were probably just recording equipment. Human Taman, the Admiral began, his translator making his voice sound deep and formal. We have analyzed all your activities since arrival. Our xenobiologists have reached disturbing conclusions about your species. Dr. Welthanos stepped forward with a portable display showing images and data. Your atmospheric manipulation capabilities are beyond our technology. Your casual dominance behaviors suggest advanced psychological warfare training. Your physical conditioning indicates a warrior species that maintains combat readiness at all times. But I'm just a student, Taman protested. I sneezed, helped my friend, and took off my shirt because it was hot. These are normal human things. Normal? Admiral Zelnathi repeated slowly. You claim that sonic disruption, effortless superiority, displays and combat preparation are casual behaviors for all humans. Well, yes, but you're misunderstanding what those things actually are. The Admiral's 4 arms moved in patterns that Ambassador Velnara translated as extreme concern. If this is your casual behavior, what are your military capabilities? Around the chamber, other council members began clicking rapidly. Taman caught fragments of the translation. 7 billion humans, all with these abilities. Potential galactic threat. Councillor Vexillara rose from her seat. Human Taman, our intelligence networks report that your home planet is sending a diplomatic team to discuss your behavior. Why would they send diplomats unless they recognize the significance of your demonstrations? Taman felt a sinking feeling in his stomach. They're probably just trying to clear up the misunderstanding. Misunderstanding, she said, as if the word was foreign. You mean your species did not intend these displays as warnings? No, we didn't intend anything. I was just being myself. Dr. Welthanos activated his display, showing video footage of Taman's sneeze, the container opening incident, and thermal images from when he had removed his shirt. Being yourself, the doctor said, involves capabilities that our science cannot explain. Your biological functions produce sonic effects that damage our crystal technology. Your physical abilities exceed our measurement tools. Your comfort, with displaying combat readiness, suggests psychological conditioning we cannot comprehend. The massive chamber fell silent as the council members absorbed this information. Then Councillor Vexillara spoke again. Dr. Welthanos, what is your professional assessment of human military potential? The doctor's forearms trembled slightly. Based on what we have observed, if human Taman represents average capabilities, then human soldiers must possess abilities we cannot currently measure or defend against. Admiral Zelnathi activated his own communication device. Fleet Command, this is Admiral Zelnathi. Recommend immediate defensive positioning around human space. Classification, unknown threat level, potentially beyond current defensive capabilities. Wait, Taman said loudly, causing several council members to drop into their submission postures. You're getting this all wrong. Humans aren't dangerous. We're peaceful. We wanted to join the galactic community as friends. Friends, Ambassador Velnara said. Like your casual dominance relationship with human high-on. That's not dominance. That's friendship. We help each other because we care about each other, not because anyone is superior. The council members clicked among themselves, confused. In their society, all relationships were based on clear hierarchy. The concept of voluntary cooperation between equals was almost impossible for them to understand. You assist others without establishing dominance? Councillor Vexillara asked. Yes, that's what friends do. And you remove protective clothing when uncomfortable despite revealing combat capabilities? Because I was hot not to show off anything. And you produce sonic disruptions involuntarily during normal biological functions? Because that's how sneezing works. Dr. Welthanos was furiously taking notes. So human threat displays are actually comfort behaviors and friendship rituals. They're not threat displays at all, Taman said, feeling frustrated. They're just normal life. The council chamber erupted in rapid clicking conversations. Admiral Zelnathi spoke into his communicator again, but this time his tone sounded different, more urgent and worried. Fleet Command, update previous assessment. Humans may not be intentionally threatening. They appear to possess these capabilities as baseline normal functions. Repeat, this is their normal state, not a war posture. Ambassador Velnara approached Taman with what he was learning to recognize as fear mixed with awe. Human Taman, she said slowly, if these capabilities are normal for your species and you were selected as an exchange student rather than a warrior, then what are your actual military personnel capable of? Before Taman could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the chamber. Not the usual station alarms, but deeper, more urgent tones that made the crystal walls vibrate. A communication officer rushed into the chamber, clicking rapidly at Admiral Zelnathi. The Admiral's compound eyes widened as he listened. What is it? Councillor Vexillara demanded. The Keltharian Emperor's fleet has arrived, Admiral Zelnathi announced. His Majesty is requesting immediate audience with the human who has demonstrated these capabilities. Through the chamber's massive windows, Taman could see ships unlike anything he had witnessed before. Enormous vessels covered in crystalline armor, surrounded by smaller escort ships that gleamed like jewels in space. The Emperor himself, Ambassador Velnara whispered. He has not left the homeworld in over 50 years. Dr. Welthanos approached, Taman with his scanning equipment. Human Taman, you must understand the significance of this moment. Emperor Thelnaven rules 3 star systems and commands fleets that have maintained peace for 1,000 years. He does not travel unless the threat to our empire is existential. Threat? Taman looked around the chamber at dozens of anxious alien faces. I'm not a threat. I'm just trying to study engineering. An engineering student, Councillor Vexillara said, who possesses capabilities that have forced our emperor to mobilize the Imperial fleet. More ships were arriving by the hour. Through the communication channels, Taman could hear reports of other alien species requesting emergency meetings with the Keltharian Empire. 3 neighboring civilizations had sent envoys asking about the human situation. Captain Quan Jiho's voice came through on Taman's personal communicator. Taman, this is Earth Command. We're receiving communications from multiple alien governments asking about our military capabilities. What exactly did you do up there? I sneezed, helped my friend open a snack container, and took my shirt off when it got hot, Taman replied, causing the entire council chamber to fall silent. You what? Captain Kwan's voice cracked through the static. It's a long story, sir. Admiral Zelnathi stepped forward. Human Taman, Emperor Thel Navon will arrive within 6 hours. He comes prepared for either diplomatic negotiation or defensive action, depending on what we learn about human intentions. Our intentions are peaceful, Taman said. We just want to be friends with everyone. Friends, Ambassador Velnara repeated thoughtfully. Like your relationship with human Hyon, where you demonstrate superior abilities casually and without ceremony. Exactly. And if humans become friends with the Keltharian Empire, you will demonstrate these casual superiorities toward us as well? Taman paused, realizing the trap in the question. If he said yes, they would think humans plan to dominate them. If he said no, they would think humans considered them unworthy of friendship. We would treat you the way we treat all our friends, he said carefully, with respect, kindness, and casual equality. The clicking around the chamber grew excited and worried. Dr. Welthanos was practically vibrating with nervous energy. Casual equality, he said, between species with vastly different capabilities. Capabilities don't matter in friendship, Taman said. Friends help each other regardless of who's stronger or weaker. Emperor Thelnavan's fleet took position around the station as the council members tried to understand a concept that challenged everything they knew about interspecies relations. In 6 hours, Taman would meet the most powerful ruler in 3 star systems and somehow convince him that humanity's greatest strength was not their accidental intimidation tactics, but their ability to be genuinely, casually friendly. The fate of human alien. Relations rested on whether one college student could explain the simple concept of friendship to an empire built on formal hierarchy and assumed threat. The Grand Assembly Hall had been transformed for the Emperor's arrival. Massive crystal formations rose from the floor, creating a throne-like structure that sparkled with inner light. Hundreds of Keltharian officials filled the chamber, all wearing their most ceremonial robes. Taman stood in the center of it all, wearing his cleanest shirt and trying not to look nervous. Hyon stood beside him for moral support, both of them surrounded by more security guards than Taman could count. Remember, Ambassador Velnara whispered, Emperor Thelnavan has ruled for over 200 years. He has never been challenged or surprised. Speak respectfully and move slowly. The great doors opened with a sound like singing crystal. Emperor. Thelnavan entered with a procession that took Taman's breath away. The Emperor was larger than any Keltharian Taman had seen, his shell a deep gold color marked with silver patterns that seemed to move in the light. His forearms wore ornate jewelry that clinked softly as he walked. Behind him came advisors, guards, and military officers in formations so precise they looked like a dance. The entire procession moved with ceremonial grace that had been perfected. Over centuries, Emperor Thelnavon took his place on the crystal throne structure. The hall fell into complete silence, except for the soft humming of the crystal walls. Human Taman Lee. The Emperor's voice was deeper than any Keltharian translator Taman had heard. I am Emperor Thelnavon, ruler of the Keltharian Empire, protector of 3 star systems, and guardian of 47 billion souls. Taman bowed as deeply as he could. Your Majesty, I'm honored to meet you. You are the human who has demonstrated capabilities that have alarmed my advisors and confused my scientists. Yes, Your Majesty, but I think there's been a misunderstanding. Emperor Thelnaven raised one hand, and the crystal walls responded by glowing brighter. Before we discuss misunderstandings, I would hear your explanation of the events that have brought me here. Dr. Welthano stepped forward with his portable display, showing the footage of Taman's sneeze, the container incident, and thermal images from the shirt removal. These are the 3 demonstrations that have caused our concern, the Emperor said, studying the images. My advisors believe they represent military capabilities beyond our understanding. Taman looked around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces watching him intently. The weight of representing all humanity pressed down on him, but he decided that honesty was the only approach that might work. Your Majesty, he began, I'd like to show you what actually happened, if that's okay. The Emperor's compound eyes focused on him with what looked like surprise. Show me? Yes, sir. With your permission, I'd like to demonstrate that these aren't weapons or threats. They're just normal human biology and behavior. Murmurs of concern clicked through the assembly. Several guards stepped closer, but Emperor Thelnaven raised a hand to stop them. Proceed, the Emperor said, but slowly. Taman took a deep breath. The first incident was a sneeze. It's something all humans do when our nasal passages are irritated. He paused, feeling the familiar tickle building in his nose. Actually, I think I need to sneeze right now. The entire assembly tensed. Guards reached for their weapons. Dr. Welthanos activated his scanning equipment. Achoo! The sneeze echoed through the crystal chamber, just as loud as before. Every Keltharian except the Emperor dropped to the floor in submission postures. Emperor Thelnavan remained on his throne, but Taman could see him gripping the crystal. Armrests. As you can see, Taman said to the Emperor, it's just air being expelled forcefully from my nose and mouth. It's not an attack or a weapon. It's a biological reflex that helps clear our breathing passages. Emperor Thelnaven studied him for a long moment. And all humans perform this function? Yes, Your Majesty. Babies, children, adults, elderly people, everyone sneezes. Fascinating, the Emperor said softly. Continue. Taman gestured to Hyun, who nervously pulled out another container of snacks from his pocket. The second incident happened when my friend couldn't open his food container. He took the container from Hyun's hands. In human culture, friends help each other with small problems without being asked. It's not about dominance or superiority. It's about caring. He opened the container easily and handed it back to Hyun. When I said, yo, bro, need help with that, I was using casual, friendly language. Bro is short for brother, but we use it for close friends. It means we consider someone family by choice, not blood. The Emperor leaned forward on his throne. You assist others as equals, without establishing hierarchy? That's right, Your Majesty. In human friendship, we help because we want to, not because we have to. Hyun would do the same for me if I needed help. Remarkable, Emperor Thelnavan said. And the third incident? Taman looked around the chamber, then back at the Emperor. That's harder to demonstrate appropriately, Your Majesty, but I can explain. Humans regulate body temperature by removing clothing when we're too warm and adding clothing when we're cold. It's not a combat display. It's climate control. The physical conditioning my advisors observed. I play soccer, Your Majesty. It's a recreational sport where we kick a ball around for fun and exercise. Most humans participate in some kind of physical activity to stay healthy. Dr. Welthanos stepped forward. Your Majesty, if I may, the human's explanation suggests that their capabilities are indeed baseline normal functions, not specialized military training. Emperor Thelnaven sat back in his throne, his forearms moving in contemplative patterns. Human Taman, if these are normal behaviors for your species, why did you not warn us in advance? Because we didn't think they were unusual, Your Majesty. To us, sneezing, helping friends, and adjusting clothing for comfort are so basic that we wouldn't think to mention them. It would be like warning you that we blink our eyes or breathe air. The Emperor was quiet for several minutes, thinking. Around the chamber, Keltharian officials waited in tense silence. Your species, the Emperor finally said, possesses biological functions that exceed our technology, physical capabilities that surpass our expectations, and social structures, based on voluntary cooperation rather than hierarchy. Yes, Your Majesty, but we're not trying to be superior to anyone. We just want to be friends. Friends, the Emperor repeated, like your relationship with human Hion. Exactly. We'd like to be friends with the Keltharian Empire the same way. Emperor Thelnavon stood from his throne, causing the entire assembly to drop into deep bows. Only Taman and Hion remained standing, unsure of the protocol. Human Taman, the Emperor said, approaching them slowly. Your species has accidentally demonstrated that what we feared as threats are actually expressions of friendship and biological necessity. That's right, Your Majesty. And if the Keltharian Empire became friends with humanity, you would treat us with the same casual equality you show human Hion? Taman smiled. Of course, Your Majesty. That's what friends do. The Emperor stopped just in front of them. Up close, he was even more impressive, but his compound eyes showed what Taman was learning to recognize as curiosity rather than fear. I have ruled for 2 centuries, Emperor Thelnavon said quietly. I have negotiated with dozens of species, commanded fleets across 3 star systems, and maintained peace through strength and formal diplomacy. Never have I encountered a species that offers friendship as casually as you offer to open food containers. Is that bad, Your Majesty? On the contrary, the Emperor said, and for the first time, his translator conveyed something that sounded like warmth. It is extraordinary. Your species possesses capabilities that could make you galactic conquerors, yet you use them to help friends with snack containers. He turned to address the assembly. The human threat assessment is hereby revised. Humans are not dangerous because they are powerful. They are remarkable because they are powerful and choose to be kind. The clicking conversations around the chamber sounded different now. Less fearful. More curious. Human Taman, the Emperor continued, I would like to propose a formal alliance between the Keltharian Empire and humanity, not based on military strength or defensive necessity, but on the principle you have demonstrated, friendship between equals. I'd like that very much, Your Majesty, Taman said, but I should mention that I'm just a college student. You'll need to talk to Earth's actual diplomats for anything official. Emperor Thelnavon made a sound that the translator rendered as laughter. A college student who accidentally prevented a galactic war by being authentically himself. Perhaps your diplomats could learn from your methods. Over the following weeks, the Taman protocols became standard procedure for human-alien first. Contact. Earth's diplomatic corps learned to warn new alien contacts about sneezing, explain human casual social interactions, and clarify that removing clothing was about comfort, not combat. The Keltharian Empire became humanity's first true galactic ally. Emperor Thelnavon established cultural exchange programs, joint research initiatives, and something entirely new in galactic history, interspecies friendship agreements. Taman completed his semester as the most famous exchange student in galactic history. His engineering thesis on integrating human and Keltharian crystal technology became the foundation for revolutionary new spacecraft designs. When he returned to Earth, he found himself recruited by the newly formed Department of Accidental Diplomacy, where his ability to be naturally human in alien situations became a valuable asset for peaceful first contact protocols. Hyun became the galaxy's leading expert on human-alien cultural translation, writing the definitive guides that prevented countless misunderstandings between species. the Keltharian Empire learned to appreciate human directness, casualness, and genuine friendship. In return, humans learned Keltharian patience, ceremony, and the value of thoughtful communication. But the most important lesson learned by everyone involved was that sometimes the most powerful diplomatic tool is not strength or strategy, but simply being comfortable with who you are. Years later, when Taman was asked about his role in establishing peaceful human-alien relations, he would always say the same thing. I just sneezed, called my friend bro, and took my shirt off when I got hot. It turns out that being genuinely human was exactly what the galaxy needed. The universe, it seemed, had been waiting for a species that was powerful enough to be gentle, confident enough to be casual, and strong enough to choose friendship over fear. And it all started with one sneeze, one bro, and one shirtless moment that made Taman's name known across 3 star systems.